Yeah, so a SAFE agreement is a simple agreement to purchase future equity. SAFEs were created back in 2012, 2013 by the Y Combinator in California. So if you go to Y Combinator's website, you're going to see their templates for the SAFEs out there. SAFEs are a convertible instrument, similar to convertible debt. We'll get into that in a minute. But SAFEs ultimately are not debt and they're not equity, and they ultimately convert to equity at the conversion point. So SAFE agreements, some typical terms you're going to see is a discount or a valuation cap. Sometimes you see them as both, but in this case, it's one or the other. So the idea with the discount is if your conversion point with a price round is $1 per share and you have a 20% discount on the previous SAFE notes, well, then you're going to have 80 cents on the dollar, so your dollars as an investor get stretched a bit further and you get more shares for it. A valuation cap using similar metrics, if you have a $10 million price round pre-money and an $8 million valuation cap, well, then you're going to get, again, 80 cents on the dollar for your shares, so your money gets stretched a bit further. SAFE notes are typically viewed as entrepreneur friendly because it's not debt, there's no repayment period, there's no interest. Whereas convertible notes are debt. You're signing a debt instrument. The money's contributed. There's interest tied to it in different flavors, simple interest, accrued interest, those types of things. And then again, those convert using a discount or a valuation cap. Now, the reason investors like convertible notes is because they have a bit more rights tied to that, right? So they own the debt. And if it doesn't convert or there's no payback, they have some sort of liquidation preference as a creditor. At the same time, they get interest tied to it. And so as those dollars accrue interest and as they get to that point of the price round, if I invest $100,000 in a SAFE, I have no interest and I get my 80 cents on the dollar if it's a 20% discount. Whereas a convertible note, I get my 100,000 plus my 10,000 in interest plus the 80% or 20% discount. And so it gets my dollars a bit more further as an investor. With convertible notes as well, they do have terms, so there's a payback period. And, those things can always be negotiated and pushed out, depending on how the fundraising strategy and the traction of the startup is taking off. So typically we would see SAFE notes very early on as part of the pre-seed rounds. As we get into the seed, angel groups, VCs, and bridge rounds, that's when convertible notes become a more prominent instrument to raise capital. The alternative to all that is the price round, and ultimately you're going to need a price round to convert, in most cases, the SAFEs and convertible notes you have on your balance sheet. And price rounds are simply what is the pre-money valuation of the company, divided by the number of shares that are out there to get your share price. And they are purchasing those shares at the share price. And so if you take the pre-money of 10 million and you raised 5 million, your post-money is going to be 15. And so that's an important way to kind of calculate dilution effects, especially when you have convertibles on your balance sheet. How do those affect and convert at later rounds as you kind of plan out your comparable data points and where you're going with the company? One other thing to consider as well is, with price rounds, there's a lot of negotiating tactics around that. And so keep in mind when you approach those price rounds, make sure your advisors are apprised of your overall funding strategy. With our clients at Project Medtech, we always like to say, don't just focus on this round, focus on the next several rounds of where we're going with this. And that comes with how you're building out your 5-year plan. And as you focus on those later stage rounds, you're going to know how the round you're currently raising is going to convert. And so you can figure out what levers you have to pull along the way. Some general, tips and tricks too when you're fundraising across all 3 of these different vehicles. When you're leveraging the convertibles, whether they're SAFEs or convertible debt, make sure the pre-money and post-money conversion language is very clear. We've seen a lot of chaos in later rounds when that's not clear or there's a misinterpretation by one party or another. And so, in that instance, pre-money valuation is going to be more dilutive to the entrepreneurs, whereas post-money conversion's less dilutive. And so if investors have the understanding that it's a pre-money conversion, they're going to expect more ownership of the company. And so make sure that language is very, very clear up front. Some other things to consider, make sure that stock option pools are used as a negotiating tactic. As a medtech startup, you're going to see a startup option or a stock option pool be created during the development stages. probably around the seed round. And the reason for that is because you want to incentivize your engineering and product development team members, whether they're partners or full-time staff or advisors. And so as folks approach that from seed to Series A, Series A investors always like to see a stock option pool be around 10 to 15%, so they have enough options set aside for the commercialization team, whether they're sales or marketing or whoever. And so from the perspective of an investor, by having a stock option pool re-upped in those earlier rounds before they invest, the share price then drops and they can show a better ROI in terms of a lift as the valuation of the companies increase. One other thing that's commonly missed is the Form D. So these are technically private offerings, and you got to make sure legal counsel is involved to file the Form D with the SEC. And we'll give a quick plug to McDonald Hopkins, who's our preferred legal partner out there, and they take care of that for a lot of our clients. And Dave Cull and I will sit up on stage and usually bring those things up, and startups are always like, I never did that. And that's where Dave will get a quick introduction to help take care of that for him. And as always, you should always involve legal counsel in terms of writing up these documents. You can download templates from the internet, but that's never advisable because terms are different, structures are different, negotiating terms are different. So keep them apprised, keep them involved. And as always, if you have an interest in reaching out to Project Medtech, you can reach out to info@projectmedtech.com. We're always happy to talk to folks about what they're working on, and then you can learn more about our investment strategy services and how we do cap table dilution scenarios for you.